You're listening to Homeschool Unrefined. I'm Maren.
And I'm Angela. Let's encourage each other, laugh, and get real about homeschool.
Welcome to the podcast where we keep homeschool simple, real, and fun. You've got episode 65, where we confess our biggest homeschooling mistake.
Hi, everybody. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial if you go to www.audibletrial.com/homeschoolunrefined. Maren, what are you or your kids listening to on Audible these days?
Well, we always have a few things going. So the kids and I are listening in the car right now. We always have an Audible story, kind of a car Audible story.
Yep.
We just started Mary Poppins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have maybe 3 of them.
Yeah.
There's several, right?
Yep.
Of the Mary Poppins series. And we got them a while back when they were on sale.
Yep.
And haven't listened to them. So
That's
I'm
a good one.
thoroughly enjoying it.
I have not listened to that, but my oldest daughter recently listened to I think there was 5 of them. She listened to all 5. She was way into it. And then my son, who is 9, just listened to the first one, and he said he liked it. So
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The narrator is wonderful.
really,
Super
okay.
Yeah. So, and then for me, I just downloaded Unburied.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
Yes. Have you read it?
I did. Yep.
You did. Okay, good.
Have you
liked
started?
it? No.
Oh, okay.
Just downloaded it. I get these credits and I think I got to save them up for when my kids get into a book, and
Yeah.
I want to do that for them. And then I just realized, no, I need to use these for myself too.
Right.
So
I love listening to a good audiobook by myself for myself
me
because
too.
it's a break. I don't know. I love listening to podcasts, but then I also love getting into an audiobook because then when I'm done, like all my podcasts have piled up, and then I have good podcasts to listen to too.
Yeah.
It's all
You
exciting.
do not want to be waiting around. And then I'll just just a kind of a side note, I just also downloaded A Wrinkle in Time, and that's
Oh.
because my oldest and I are actually reading it together.
Yep.
We're almost done. But my other kids really want to go to the movie.
Yep.
So I told them, you gotta listen first.
You did.
I did. And I am not requiring that they sit and listen to, understand it all. I know it's kind of,
Yep.
it's a lot to take in, the
It's a lot.
story.
Yep.
So we'll probably just put it on the background while we're doing things.
Yeah. Okay.
But I just want them to have a taste of what it's like before we go see it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have not required that. My oldest, that is probably her favorite book. And
Wow.
then my other 2
That's
have
awesome.
not listened, or read it at all yet. So I'm trying
I'm really
to decide.
impressed. I'm really impressed with anyone who's this is their favorite book.
Yeah,
Because it's a lot to understand.
it's a lot to understand. I think it's a very intuitive book. So
Yes.
it's not. I tried starting it, and I was like, since I'm not real intuitive, it was hard for me.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So
yeah. So how about you? What are you listening to?
well, we also have a car book going, and it's James and the Giant Peach. And
Oh,
it's
my
a
goodness.
re-listen for us. And I know you've talked a lot about Roald Dahl, so we don't need to go into that. But
He's kind of like part of our family. So much we've listened to him.
except, I don't know, this is kind of an aside, but my kids, like the kids in the middle don't hear it as loud as the kids in the back or the front. And so we have this
Oh.
like, turn it up, turn it down, turn it up. Maybe it's just the James and the Giant Peach recording, because sometimes he gets real soft.
Well, that actually makes me think I need to put my son in our middle seats, because he always says it's too loud, and I think, well,
Is he in the back?
Really, yeah.
It is loud in the back because there's
Oh, okay.
speakers back there. But there's not any in the
Aren't
middle.
there speakers?
Not
there
in the
aren't
middle.
speakers in the middle?
No, not in my van, at least. Maybe in yours. I
I'm
mean,
gonna go
we have
check.
the same van, so there aren't.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, okay. So, and I am listening to, it's called Educated, a memoir.
Oh, that's on my list.
Yeah. I think a few of our listeners have recommended this to me, and I've heard it
Yes.
a lot of places, and I'm a sucker for memoirs. And this was recommended, like, if you like The Glass Castle, or if you like The Sound of Gravel, or those kind of memoir, you would like this one, which I loved both of those. So I am listening to it. It's about a woman who grew up in a Mormon family, which that's not really, I mean, that's just kind of an aside, but
Okay.
she didn't set foot in a classroom until age 17, which is like supposed to be this big dun dun dun, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But her family was pretty fundamentalist, and so she's talking about that and how
Oh,
I haven't gotten to the
wow.
part yet where she sets foot in a classroom, but just her teenage
Wow.
years. And so it's interesting.
So many good things to listen to.
Yep. And then I also
wanna listen to
downloaded,
them
which I
all.
haven't listened to yet. I like to listen to like nonfiction on Audible.
Yeah.
I don't know
Mhm.
why. I also like fiction on Audible, but I downloaded Susan Weisbauer's Rethinking School,
Ooh.
but I haven't gotten to that yet. So we'll see.
I want to hear about that too.
Yeah.
You'll have to give us some feedback.
Yeah.
All right. We want to thank all of our listeners for being part of our community. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following us on social media and Instagram and Facebook. We love that you're part of our group, Unrefined Homeschoolers. I am just really enjoying those conversations so much in there. So thank you so much for being part of our community. If you like our podcast, would you be willing to review us on Apple Podcasts? And also just subscribe. Easy thing to do is just subscribe to our podcast. And that just helps us get known to more people.
Yes. And we are also on a couple of new platforms recently. I know we talked about this last week, but we are on Twitter now.
Mm-hmm.
And our Twitter handle is HS Unrefined. So this episode, I think it was our first tweet went out that this episode came out.
I'm glad you were in charge of that.
Well, it's nothing special, but it was our first one. And I don't think anybody's following us yet. So, hey, you could be the first one to follow us.
Yeah.
That'd be exciting. Okay. And then we also have a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
So our podcast is on YouTube now. You're not going to see our faces. It's just going to be like an image of something like our podcast or our episode image. And then you can listen to it on YouTube. So if that's your thing, you know,
Great.
some people are can do that easier than like listening on a podcast. So
Right. Yep.
we hope to put other things on there too, Maren. You said you're going to get like all of our videos on YouTube.
Well, I'd like to put some of our good stories, our Instagram stories on there, and
Yeah.
just some other things.
Yeah.
Little thoughts.
Yeah. So, Maren, you
Yes.
told me a while ago, and we haven't talked about this yet. So you told me you had a big revelation about cleaning
Yes.
and
Yeah.
organizing, or was it just, I don't know. Can you explain?
I mean, kind of all of it.
Okay. Tell us.
Administrative work. Well, I was just thinking, I think it was back when we were on vacation for a week, and then I came home with the kids. The kids and I came home from vacation, and my husband went to another workshop. So he was gone for like a week and a half. And I just thought, wow, I am going to slowly kill myself if I work as hard as I normally work, or if I keep the house as clean as I normally keep it for this week and a half while we are just coming home from vacation and Sean's out of town, and I cannot keep up.
Yeah.
And the harder I try to keep up, the more I'm just going slowly crazy here. So I decided it's better at this point for me to have a messy house and a happy family. And I had to loosen so many needs. I don't know, so much control. I had to loosen so much control. And because I really function better when I have a clean house. I just do. I am just normally happier when things are clean.
Are you? Okay.
I can find things. I can everything just goes smoother when things are cleaned up, right? But for me to get things that clean just meant I was going to be a very crabby, stressed out person.
Right.
And so I had to weigh all of those things and just decided it's better for me to not do all those things right now.
Right.
And so our house was messy. We didn't eat any homemade meals really.
Wow.
For a while.
Good for you.
We ate a lot of cheese and crackers, and went out to eat a few times while Sean was gone. And then I just realized even when Sean came home, I think I am working so hard. And of course we all are, right? But I think I'm working harder than anyone else in our family to keep our house clean. And I started to was just feeling kind of resentful about that.
Right.
And I thought it's probably better for my house to be messy and me not feel resentful.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, totally. This reminds me of when I had kids who were napping and they would go down for a nap, and your first instinct, or at least my first instinct, is always, okay, now I need to clean up. But I had to stop myself
right.
and be like, no.
Right.
That's not the first thing you need to be doing. The first thing you need to be doing is like taking a nap or reading a book or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, with my personality too, where I get energy is to have fun and do new things and play games or, just be active with my kids and have interesting conversations. And that's where I get my energy. I do not get energy from cleaning. So I just had to take that into account too.
Yeah. And I think this is a lot of knowing yourself too, because you're a P on the Myers-Briggs.
Right.
And so I'm a J. And so I need outer world order. Outer order contributes to inner calm. And for you, it's the opposite.
Yes. Inner order is what I do.
Yeah.
I can be calm if I'm inwardly
if you have order
and,
inside.
And so if I have processed through things or those are the kind of things I need to do in order to feel calm.
Right. So because you're a P and that's not necessary for you, I think it's even better for you to know that about yourself and to not stress yourself out about having a clean house.
Right. It's so true. It's hard though. I mean, you know what has happened though? People have picked up the slack in our house.
What?
Like my husband he's like, did you notice that the dishes aren't, or he'll be like, did you know that this isn't, nobody turned on the dishwasher? And I was like, yeah, I know.
What about?
And then it just happens. Like he's doing a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think he is so willing to do it. It's just that I do it all the time.
Yeah.
So it gets done. And so he doesn't expect to do it. And then if it doesn't get done, that's when he's like, oh, this has to get done.
Yeah.
And he just does it.
Yeah.
And he's a J.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
He likes when things get done and he's happy to do it too. So everything's working out so much better at my house.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. The only thing is our house is messier. It is. It just is.
That's okay.
I don't like it, but it's better than the other way.
That's okay.
Around, so.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so today we are going to confess our biggest homeschool mistake.
Yes. Dun, dun, dun.
And we have the same. We have the same biggest mistake. So we were like, well, let's just do an episode on this.
Absolutely. So our biggest mistake that we both agree we did was we did too much too soon.
Yep.
And we thought a lot of you could relate to that.
Yeah, too much too soon in our homeschooling career. Like when we started homeschooling was when we did the most, when our kids were the youngest. And as they've gotten older and as we've had more years of experience, we're doing less and less.
Right, exactly. And I was thinking, I wish I would have had this much wisdom back then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in 5 years from now, I'll think, ooh, I wish 5 years ago I would have had this much wisdom.
I know.
But
what is that going to be?
We'll do another episode in 5 years. But really, when we started, I think, Angela, you and I both thought we had to be doing all the subjects. Everyone else in first grade in the United States is doing all the subjects. So we should be doing all the subjects.
Right. So there's reading and math and spelling and writing. And we were doing piano. I think you were doing violin. So there's that. History, getting outside, chores. What other subjects do we do? Science. It was all of it. And if I wasn't doing one of those, I felt like if I wasn't doing one of those enough, I felt like I was failing.
And I think we did a lot of social things because we thought socialization is like the big concern of everybody. So we have to do that. And I think we just took everything to the extreme.
Right. And this is when our kids were like
young.
5 or 6.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, and I remember planning a lot. I planned so much.
Did you?
I have things, I have notebooks from back then.
You do?
Where there's a list of things we did every day.
Really?
It was just, yeah.
I didn't even do that.
Well, I mean, it was things of to do that day.
Oh.
So, I mean, and we crossed off the ones we did.
Okay.
And oftentimes we didn't get to everything, but my expectations were just off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah, I look back and I feel my oldest is now, she's almost 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad for 6-year-old her.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my heart breaks for her because I think I put a lot of pressure on her and myself at that time.
Yeah.
And my younger ones to let us do that, like to sit quietly or to like give us the space to work.
Oh, yeah. And, a lot of people who have younger kids, and this is why I didn't want to homeschool at the beginning, and I didn't full-time homeschool. We only did part-time homeschooling right away at the beginning. And that was because I didn't know what to do with my younger kids.
Yeah.
I thought, how am I going to teach my 6-year-old
all day
and have 3 like toddlers running around? I just didn't think that would ever work.
It's impossible. Yeah. It is impossible.
Impossible
to teach all day with toddlers running around. If your vision of teaching all day is doing all the subjects kind of teacher directed, working hard.
I just wish I could go back to that time and tell my past self, listen, just cut it all out. You don't need to do any of this, or just, here, do a few things here and there, but as the interest arises.
Right.
Probably.
So if you could do it all over again, what would you do, Maren?
Yeah, that's what I would do. I'd probably just have things out academically and just to see what my daughter's ready for. I would do a lot of reading out loud, which I did. I'll admit. That is one thing I've always loved to do, reading out loud. And then I just think my expectations for reading independently would have been out the window. Like I wouldn't even put that on the table really. Unless my child was ready for it, I think. Yeah. And for my oldest, my child wasn't ready for that. Yeah. At 6. I wanted her to be ready at 6 to read. She wasn't ready at 6. Yeah. And so there was, I feel bad for my past daughter, too, my 6-year-old daughter, you know. Yeah. Because I did place those expectations on her. So, there'd be just a lot more exploring and time for fun. And then call that school. And remind my kids, this is school. Right. At 6, this is school. You're learning so much. Right.
I think it's so hard, though, because you're imagining what a 6-year-old would be doing if they were in school. And their day is full with all the subjects. And so you're thinking that you need to be doing at least half of that. Or, you need to be doing some of that, too. And so it's very hard to compare.
Yes. And you want to be able to answer questions of people who are asking you, oh, so your kid's not in school. What are they, what are they doing? What do you do all day? Or, I always felt like I needed to have a good answer.
What are you doing for homeschool? What curriculum are you using? And you want to be able to answer that well and sound legit.
So how about you, Angela? What would you do differently?
Well, I feel like I'm sort of doing it with my 9-year-old son because I let up a bit. So, I let up a lot, actually. And so I'm kind of, if I can look at what I'm doing with him, that's kind of what I would be doing, which is lots of reading aloud. Probably lots of, like, surround them with books. Yeah. Like, have it out as an option. Have lots of great conversations. Right. When they are interested in something or ask a question about something, figure out the answer together.
Yes. I love that.
Lots of time for play. With like good quality toys. Lots of time outside. I would probably he has a little iPod where he can listen to Lots of stories that way. So just the exposure to lots of stories would be good. But I probably wouldn't do anything like a formal curriculum unless he
Right.
was really interested. If he was really interested, then I
Yeah.
would. Then I probably would pull that out.
You know, I wish I would have had Julie Bogart's the Writer's Jungle.
Oh yeah.
Back when my oldest was 5 or 6 or whatever, because in there she just lays out so many great things that you don't need any really resources for.
Yeah.
You don't need to go buy a bunch of stuff, and it's not a curriculum. It's not a book that you open and write in. It's just ideas for having juicy conversations, asking lots of questions,
Yeah.
having rich experiences together.
Right.
Those are the things. Those lay the foundation for so much good writing, and she's really all about good writing, and so that's what she suggests you do when your kids are that young.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have done that. And now I have to say, starting now is okay because now I know.
Yeah. Right.
And my kids are older, and that's why we actually had to, like you did, kind of let up even more than normal. I mean, my kids are now 11, 9, 9, and 7. And had we started out this way, we may have been able to get, they may have been able to do, like more intense things right now.
Right.
But because we started out a little too
intense,
aggressive, aggressively, now I think we need to like kind of de-school is kind of what we talked about in the past.
Yeah.
Kind of de-school a little bit and do less, and just bring it back to the joy of learning.
Yeah.
Just enjoying learning.
Right. Yeah, I never want I guess my biggest goal for my kids is to always enjoy learning.
Right.
Be excited about what they're learning about. That's just
Right.
I keep that at the top of my mind always. And so I guess if I was starting out too intensely, that's going to zap that joy of learning. I don't ever want them to go, "Oh, we have to do history," or whatever the subject is.
Yeah. Yep. It's so true.
If you are interested in hearing more about what our days look like with our kids at the ages that we are now, we did a curriculum episode a few ago, and it's called Where We Talk Curriculum Specifics. And so you can find out more detailed information there. So we're not going to really go into all the details about what we're doing now, but if you're interested, you can check that episode out.
I would add something that I don't know that I talked about much on there, but when we're talking about writing and how I feel like writing is such angst, it brings so much angst
It's a
to
good word.
parents, and kids, because what we expect our kids to, once they have ideas in their head, to write it down, and it just doesn't happen like that. It's they get these huge ideas in their head. I mean, just amazing ideas in their head. But they cannot write those down physically. A lot of it is just physically. Yeah. But then also just the transfer of knowledge from your head to your hand. It's just, that is such a complex skill. Right. So where was I going with that? Oh, one thing that we could do, what I liked doing when my kids were younger, and I wish I would have this would have been our writing, is fine motor skills. Just doing any kind of fine motor skills. Yeah. Like coloring
or painting.
Lots of painting, lots of art, lots of, playing in sand. Yeah. All those things are so good. Anything you're using your fingers for.
Any like kitchen tools?
Kitchen tools.
Yeah, that's a lot of pre-writing.
It is. It really is. It even strengthens those finger muscles. Yeah. So that's all so good. And then also just anything that gets written or that gets put down that was in their head and that gets put down on a piece of paper is the first step to writing. Right. So it could be a smiley face. Right. Could be a sad face. My daughter still draws sad faces with tears and whatever. And she will show that to me and say, "This is how I'm feeling right now." And so that is writing.
That is. She's getting down on her head onto paper.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's such a a complex and tough skill to master, you're not going to master that at 5 or 6 or 7
No.
or 12
No.
or 41.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
right.
you
It's
know,
hard.
like we haven't done that. Most people
No.
have not mastered that skill.
No.
So, we have to kind of meet our kids where they're at
Right.
with writing
Right.
in that way.
So why, Maren? So we're talking
Yes.
about this, and I think
Yeah.
I think what we're saying, it could be a little bit controversial. You know, yeah, it's a controversial thing to talk about. Starting later, right? Later is better.
Yeah.
So why do we think it's important? Like, why do we think this is the right thing to do? I mean, obviously schools aren't doing this. They're starting earlier. They're starting earlier with everything. So why do we think later is better?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I think, first of all, there's a lot of pressure. Kids, I don't think need to deal with so much pressure.
Yeah.
When they feel pressure, they back off.
Yeah.
Because they weren't meant to deal with all that.
Right.
so
Or it
then
comes out in other ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Exactly. Yep. And because adults are supposed to take care of those high pressure situations,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so they, it'll all come out in whatever way you know your kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody learns something learns things at different rates. I mean, it's the same thing
Exactly.
with like walking. So if you have
Yeah.
some kids learn to walk at 8 months, some kids don't learn till 18 months. And we don't say to the kid who learns at 18 months, like, come on, let's get going. You need to,
Yeah.
we don't think they're not going to learn to walk. They are
Right.
eventually going to learn to walk. They're just learning a little bit later. Or, you know, the same thing with riding a bike.
We don't test them. Yeah. We don't test them at 12 months. And
No.
say, well, you should be walking by now.
Yeah, and we don't
Yeah.
put them through rigorous, like, okay, let's do this. Come on, back and forth, learning to walk.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I may have done that. Actually,
Confession. More confessions.
our oldest at like 17 months, she wasn't walking yet, and we
Yeah.
were we had a piece of like a fruit snack. And
Yeah.
like between Jeremy and I, and we practiced because we knew she could do it. She just wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
That's so funny.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed because she would have learned like a month later,
Which would have been fine.
Anyway, it's the same thing with reading or learning math or any subject in school. When they are developmentally ready is actually the best time to do it, or when they're showing interest is the best time to do it. If you're trying to push them too early, it just puts this pressure on them that they don't need at age 5 or 6 or 7.
Right. Exactly. And our kids are born learners.
Yeah.
I mean, they were made to learn.
Yeah, we all
Their
are.
brains were made to do that, right? Yeah. And so when we put those expectations on them, then they start to think, well, I have to work for someone else and not for myself. Because I'm interested in these things, but I have to work towards this other goal that I don't, maybe don't really care as much about or whatever. So, and then just the learning gets less effective.
Right. Don't you
when
want
that's
them to be learning about that thing that they're really interested in? Wouldn't that be amazing if everybody could just follow their interests and
I know.
and go to what like excites them and brings them joy?
Right. Sounds like utopia. I mean, that just sounds like
I'd
beautiful.
love to do that.
I know.
And I feel like I'm just kind of doing that now. You know, like the
Yeah.
older I get, the more I'm kind of figuring that out. Just like be who you are and follow your interest. And if something interests you, learn about it. Then it's
so true.
exciting.
Yeah. And there are some things our kids need to learn.
Yeah.
And you might think, my kids are never going to want to learn about this. But they might. And if they don't, it might be okay. There are things we think our kids need to learn, and they might not need to. They might not actually need to. They might learn enough to get by, and that might be good enough.
And I guess in those cases, I'd rather wait until I know they're for sure developmentally ready to handle it
Right.
before I tell them or have a conversation with them about why it might be important for them to learn this.
right.
Rather than pushing it on a little too early.
Because that's like double whammy. It's like, number one, they're not interested in it. Number two, they're not ready to learn it.
Yeah.
So if one of those is taken away,
Yeah.
at least at least make sure they're ready to learn it, because otherwise it's just so slow. The learning is just like slow going and laborious and frustrating, and
Yeah.
like, you're just counting the minutes till you're done learning,
Yeah.
you're done learning this. So why not just at least wait till they're ready
Right.
and then move on
Right.
and do what's needed, move on.
Right.
If that's the case. So Angela, why is this idea good for older kids? We've talked about a lot about why it's good to start later for younger kids, but what about the older kids?
Well, I feel like my oldest is just 13, so but I feel like the same rules apply
Mm-hmm. I do
with
too.
developmentally. I specifically remember being in 7th grade in pre-algebra. And for the first half of the year, I was completely lost. I was like, I do not get this. I don't get the letters. Like, what is she talking about? Letters don't make sense. And then somewhere in mid-year, like a switch clicked on, and I was like,
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get it. And then,
wow.
you know what? I loved algebra after that. I was actually really
Right.
good at math. And so I feel like, and that's just my one anecdotal perspective. But
Mhm.
I feel like that for me was developmentally it kind of turning on. And it took a while. It was
Right.
mid 7th grade year. And I just feel like that's happening all the time for lots of different subjects for different people.
Yeah. That's so good.
And
That happened to me in high school too,
really?
with reading.
Oh, okay.
So in 9th grade, I was in an English class so my teacher said, if you want an A, you have to read one of these books. If you want a B, read one of these books.
Okay.
C. And that gave me heart palpitations because I was not really much of a reader.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was super nervous about that. So I picked a B book.
Okay.
And crossed my fingers that I would be able to read it.
Okay.
I think it was The Hatchet. I got to tell you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think it was The Hatchet. Which I loved The Hatchet. But I felt bad about myself because I was like,
Oh.
I can't read anything.
I'm reading B material.
I'm reading B material, and I just felt like I'm an A student. So
Oh, that's terrible.
I know. So anyway, but by the time when I was a senior, just because of my schedule, I had to do an independent study for American literature.
Okay.
And it just worked out that this teacher could take a few students at the end of the school day. It was the last hour of the day. There were like 5 of us. We just needed to get this class in. And so this teacher and the 5 of us, she picked some of her favorite books.
Yeah.
Just like some of her favorite books, and they were like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
That was the one I remember the most. But it was like Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
So many good books.
Yeah.
And we just read them and discussed them. And at that point, when I was a senior, I was ready to read those books.
Yeah.
I was ready to read anything, you know, at that point. But when I was in 9th grade, I just was not ready.
Yeah.
Probably for lots of reasons.
Oh gosh. I have a same story with reading.
Really?
Literature. Well, I
Let's hear it.
didn't read any literature in high school because
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I tried. I did not understand at all.
Yeah.
And I think I was early 20s before I could pick up some like hard literature and actually understand it.
Right.
And my mom was an English teacher. She tried too. I mean, she sometimes tried to like read out loud to me, and I remember her saying like, "Do you get it?" Like, no.
Yeah.
No. Don't.
It's okay.
But I think part of it too is like I would do the thing where I read, but I wasn't really listening for anything. I was just reading to get through the pages, because like we
Oh,
had to
my
read
goodness.
a chapter by tomorrow
Yeah.
or whatever. And I never even was like mentally paying attention. I was thinking of something else
Right.
while I was reading. So anyway, yeah, I feel
Oh my
like
goodness.
yeah, I feel like
That's a case for like our kids. When I think of my kids and what they're reading, like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I'm letting them read this like kind of twaddle.
yeah.
A lot of people call it twaddle. I feel like if that's where they're at, go for it. That's their
Yeah.
independent reading style. Go with it.
Totally. I agree. So I feel like for older kids, it's the same as younger kids. And also, I feel like the other thing is, I feel like with older kids, we kind of want to push them too soon out of this play mentality.
Yes.
And I do not like that. I want to keep my
Yeah.
kids playing as long as
I know.
possible because they're still learning so much when they're playing.
We don't want them to grow up, and yet we want them to grow up.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
So we have to let them be kids
Yeah.
and play. That's where learning still happens.
Totally.
Ah. Does your 13-year-old play?
She does. She plays. You know, she doesn't play with dolls. I was never like a doll player either.
Yeah.
I was really confused by kids
never-
who wanted to play with dolls.
I never liked dolls either.
I just couldn't like.
Me
What am
either.
I supposed to do?
Just-
Pretend
they're
we're
just sitting there.
I could change their clothes.
They're
I'm
not
totally
real.
fine with that. But I could not pretend that they were doing something.
Me either.
Anyway, but my 13-year-old plays with like she loves anything sciencey. So
Yes.
like she likes, snap circuits. She
Great.
likes she loves like Tinker Crate.
Yeah.
She loves just building things. Building
Yep.
things to building big elaborate things with like different kinds of materials.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah. So I want to
So
keep that
great.
going as long as possible.
I have a 9-year-old who plays with boxes.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
I mean, it's her favorite thing.
That's great.
So, I just feel like when she's creating those things, I scrap all my plans.
Yeah. Keep it going.
Yeah, keep it going.
Cuz my fear is
Exactly.
like if I stop this, what if this is the last time they ever wanted to play with us?
I know. Yeah,
So-
that's so true.
It would be good for me to play. I mean, it's good for adults to play.
It's
So
true.
it's still obviously good for them to play.
Okay, so that brings me to the next question. Why is this idea of doing less early?
Yep.
Why is that good for moms? For us?
Well, I think for the homeschool parent, I just feel like it's not sustainable to be doing that much all the time.
Yeah.
If I would not still be homeschooling if I was still doing what I did when my daughter was 6 or 7.
Right.
It's an unsustainable model. It's very physically and mentally taxing.
Right. It so is. And the thing is, when your kids are 6, they're still willing to like try.
Yeah.
And they want to please you.
Yeah.
And even though they probably can't keep up with those kind of expectations, they might try to keep up with those expectations.
Yeah.
But when they're 12 or 13, they're kind of
Not
like,
gonna.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. I mean, some kids might.
Some kids might. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like I want a sustainable, more realistic picture of what a family looks like,
Right.
what things we do together as a family, and I want them to be involved in that as much as possible rather than like if I
Yeah.
just did like we're sitting around the table doing our school all day, then they're not getting the picture of, oh, we have appointments and we have to clean up after breakfast and we have to do laundry and it's shoveled or it snowed so we have to shovel or whatever.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
real life things and I want them to be involved in that as much as possible.
Yeah, it's so true. It's real hard to expect kids to do anything else if you're just doing full on doing the academics
Right.
all day.
Right. Yeah. Just like if my kids were in school all day, it would be real hard for me to have them do chores.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
know.
they'd be so tired. And I would
I
feel
would-
bad
I know.
putting that on them.
Absolutely. I mean, even when we have a busy day,
Yeah.
like we're out all day,
Mhm.
they are dead when we come home.
Yeah.
They just can't
I know. I'm dead.
hardly.
So I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So true. Angela, is there anything that you read or listened to that helped you kind of come to this decision? Or was it just your experience that helped you realize this?
Gosh, I think it was a combination of both.
Mhm.
And these are all things we've talked about, but seeing this play out with my kids is a big one. But then also simultaneously listening to Julie Bogart and reading her books has been good.
Yes.
Free to Learn, which we've talked about before, by Peter Gray. That was really instrumental for me in shaping how I think. And then Simplicity Parenting was another good one. We've talked about that too. We did a whole
Oh my goodness.
3-part series on that book. We did a book
Yes.
club on that. If you're interested, you could go back and listen. Those were all really helpful. I think do you have any other ones to add?
Yeah.
Or
Those are my 3.
Oh,
I was
all
going
right.
to say the
Great.
same 3. Those are, we didn't really plan that, but those were the 3 that, well, first I read Simplicity Parenting.
Yeah.
And that made me realize, that I don't need to be placing so many expectations on my kids or myself, or we don't need to be doing everything that is good in this world.
Yeah.
We just can't, right? And Free to Learn really, I think, fleshed that out in a real way for me.
Yep.
So, and then Julie Bogart, I feel like is just, I think of her every day, and I reference her book, The Writer's Jungle, all the time.
Yeah.
And just on it for a daily basis, an encouragement, a reminder every day of things that I am already doing that are such rich learning that if I just did those things, it would be enough.
Yep.
Having a juicy conversation is so much learning. So much learning.
Yeah.
And we have to give ourselves credit for that.
Yep.
And our kids credit for that.
Right. Awesome.
All right.
Let's move on to loving this week.
Yes. Angela, what are you loving this week?
Okay. I am loving a podcast.
All right.
It's called The Lazy Sisters.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Love them.
So The Lazy Sisters is, it was an old podcast. I used to listen to it a couple years ago, and then they stopped recording.
Yeah.
So it's Kendra and her sister Hannah. So Kendra is from The Lazy Genius. So you may have heard of her. She also has her own podcast where she just talks with herself, just one person, just her talking in The Lazy Genius. But she has a younger sister, and they used to have this podcast where they just chatted, the two of them. And I loved it, but then they stopped recording.
Right.
But now they're back. They're back. And so I am listening again, and I love it. The two of them are, well, first of all, they're sisters. So I just feel like their chemistry is so good. And so they're just like, the way they bounce off each other, I just love it.
They're both really funny.
They're both funny.
Too.
Kind of, yeah. It's not like, I'm not laughing the whole time funny, but it's just like entertaining.
Funny.
It's entertaining funny. They talk.
They're witty.
They're witty. Yeah.
Very witty.
And they talk about like just life and then lots of pop culture stuff, which I always enjoy, even though I don't watch a lot of TV or movies.
And The Lazy Genius, when Kendra just did The Lazy Genius, that was kind of like great hacks, like life hacks, kind of.
She still does that.
Okay.
She still does that. But so the deal with the Lazy Sisters podcast, though, now that it's back, it's only on Patreon, which means you have to pay for it.
Oh, wow.
So I did. Because I love supporting podcasters. So I'm kind of a sucker for that, Yeah. And then 2, I want to listen. So, and it's $3 a month. That's what it is, $3 a month. And they kind of just said, look, we're so busy. They both of them have little kids and businesses that they're running. And so they're just like, if we're going to do this podcast, we have to get paid a little bit.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Because, podcasters don't get paid, usually.
Right.
I don't know if you knew that. Unless you're like really big time.
Some podcasters actually pay to do theirs. Our podcast costs us money. You know what I mean?
Costs us money to do
it costs
this.
money to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense.
I totally get why they need Patreon supporters to do their podcast. I totally respect that. And so I signed up to do that. And so I can put a link in the show notes if you want to do that. But if you just wanted to listen for free, you can go listen to all their old episodes. They're still on any podcatcher. You could just search Lazy Sisters and you could hear what they're like. And then if you wanted more, you could maybe sign up to be a Patreon subscriber.
And I love following Kendra on Instagram. Well, I think just The Lazy Genius.
Yeah. She's a good follow.
Instagram. I love her. And she does Instagram lives once a week.
Yeah.
Too. And they're great. So.
Yep. Yeah. So, Maren, what are you loving this week?
I am loving our Soda Stream.
Oh.
It's a jet sparkling water maker.
I just heard about this. My kids just told me that you have one.
Yeah. Yeah. So my daughter got it for Christmas. She was asking for it. These are the kind of Christmas gifts I like to give to my kids.
They're awesome. It sounds awesome.
Things
you want.
I think that are real practical and like they're part of our like just life.
Yeah.
anyway, so she asked for it, and I thought, oh, great.
Yeah.
So it is wonderful because I love to get sparkling water, but it's expensive. And this is more fun for everybody. Everybody can make their own sparkling water, basically.
Yeah.
You just put a little squeeze of flavor, whatever flavor you want, in the water. You hook it up to the soda stream, and it creates the carbon dioxide in there. And yeah, it's great.
Is it immediate, or do you have to let it sit for a while?
Yeah, it's
you can
immediate.
just immediately get some.
Yes.
And do they give you flavoring?
You buy your own flavoring.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just get some on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
That sounds like a good idea.
You just have to replace the carbonator every once in a while. So we just finished one, and so they give you a little starter one, and that worked for like a week for us.
Okay.
So and then we bought one more, and it's worked until now.
Okay.
So that's been like 3 months since Christmas. So yeah.
So you aren't buying any LaCroix anymore?
No.
Basically.
Right. Exactly.
Huh.
Yep. I'm loving it. So, and it's great because I like fizzy things.
Yeah.
I'd rather be having a soda, but this is a great replacement.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's I'm just thinking about this, like, why didn't I think of this a week ago when I was getting birthday gifts for my 13-year-old?
Oh.
That would have been a good one. I could still get it for us.
You still have time.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I could.
Yeah, you could just get it for your family.
I could just get it.
Yep.
Because we go through a lot of LaCroix. So.
Right. Exactly. And so were we. We were, and when we would get LaCroix, I'd be like, everybody can have a half of a can per day. That's it. Or otherwise we will go broke buying LaCroix.
That's funny.
Yeah. So now we get to drink up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We appreciate it so much. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Homeschool Unrefined. Oh, and we're on Twitter at HS Unrefined. Are you figuring that out, Maren? You're going to be maybe sending some tweets. Is that right?
Oh, gosh.
Soon.
I guess so.
Soon.
Yep.
And then our website is homeschoolunrefined.com, and you can find links to everything that we talked about there or in our podcatcher, your podcatcher. So we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Homeschool Unrefined was created by Maren Gorse and Angela Sizer. Thanks to Gambler's Daughter for providing the music for our show. You can find Gambler's Daughter at facebook.com/gamblersdaugghtermusic.